Hi, welcome back to another one of those preview videos. Now we're examining Unit 3, Chapters 22 to 24. And as always, there are those Unit 3 reading and self-assessment questions. Those questions that I recommend that you look at both before and after, even during if needed, your review of Chapters 22, 23, and 24. The material we're covering is World War I. There are a lot of resources and pop culture newscasts out there in your purview now that we are at the centennial of World War I. We also look at the Roaring Twenties, the New Era, as it's called in your textbook, the Great Depression, and then Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal experiment. In addition to those reading and self-assessment questions that are always available to you, you can tackle the material by examining the 20s and the FDR and the Depression streaming videos available to you free from Annenberg. John Green also lends his sense of humor and his historical lens to the Crash Course on America in World War I, a crash course on women's suffrage that actually extends beyond the time period in this unit. It goes beforehand and gives you some foundations of the women's suffrage movement, including their early work in abolitionism before the Civil War, their role central to pioneer and homesteading out west, and then even extends his view of women's suffrage beyond the purview of this time period into the so-called sexual revolution for women, and even their ultimately abortive effort to add an equal rights amendment in the 70s. There's a crash course on the Roaring Twenties, that's always fun, the Great Depression, and also the New Deal. For online lectures, your lecture points, World War I, if you need a recap of how it will impact. But then for the focus of this unit, it's Lecture 7 in Part 2 on the 1920s and Lecture 8, Depression and the New Deal. Again, you'll have those common misconceptions and difficult topics. Here, I look at the main causes of World War I and also how that will shape attitudes and experiences in the 20s and beyond. Militarism, alliances, imperialism, nationalism. There's a look at why, again, number 1 triggers number 2, this thinking that America was isolationist in the 1920s. And I have you sort of consider if that really is, while a simplistic view, true in every case. Radicalism in the 1930s. This is reflecting not only communism, but also the charges that were levied against Roosevelt's New Deal. Also in Unit 3, of course, as you come to expect, having reviewed all this material, there's an opportunity for you to shine on the Unit 3 reading quiz and on the discussion board. The discussion board this time again has you take up perspective, which is really important in history, of course. The virtual discussion on this Unit 3 has you pretend as though you live in the World War I era. You will choose one of the situations that I provide: fighting in the trenches, being a woman at home, working on the home front, or Woodrow Wilson hearing news that he is going to ask Congress for a declaration of war in April of 1917. You write your letter and you make sure that your author is an educated and well-informed American of the era, including at least 5 factual illustrations of life during the war that you'll either number, italicize, or in some way indicate to me that this is one of the minimum factual illustrations you're including in your post. Then, read a peer's letter. Pretend as though you are the audience for your classmate's letter and write a response that you post. Finally, you know that there is a writing assignment for Unit 3. The Unit 3 writing assignment sends you back again to the SAS Curriculum Pathways website. This time, the topic lends itself nicely to the comments I made in the last video about the true nature of progressivism and in the progressive presidents, particularly Woodrow Wilson, and it brings up the question of race. Here you will go to the SAS curriculum website, and at SAS curriculum pathways you will watch the background videos that are closed captioned for ADA compliance. You'll interact with the primary sources provided there, all the while building to creating your 2-page paper that answers the question, does the Civilian Conservation Corps of the New Deal represent a significant improvement in the American government's policy toward African Americans? Again, all of these SAS queries have you get an opportunity to express an opinion. But even while you're expressing an opinion, it has to be an opinion that is supported with historical evidence. This is not an editorial, so there's not I believes and I thinks and I feels, but instead there is a third-person voice that quotes specific, relevant, but only the most necessary parts of the documents to support conclusions that you draw. I'll also note something that's been present for you all along and underscore that I have posted under each writing assignment and the midterm exam a 4 C's writing rubric. These 4 C's, as I've called them, ensure that you are aiming for writing that is complete, addressing all parts of the assignment and instructions, writing that is clear, that maintains focus, has those accurate, relevant details I mentioned, and incorporates effectively documents, that it is coherent, that it's logical, that it is in an order and a progression that makes sense, and that all parts are easy to understand because they are part of a logically connected whole. And also, no, it's not an English class, but good writing is good writing, and that each of your submissions is correct is important. So I'll be looking for correct word choice, word use, sentence structure, and again that errors in spelling, punctuation, and capitalization don't detract from the work. So in this rubric that I apply to all of your writing assignments, I've defined here excellent work, which is AB, good work, BC, fair work, CD, and unacceptable work, DF. Anytime you are reviewing those specific comments I provide at the end of any unit and those specific comments that I embed in your actual writing assignments that you submit to me, feel free to reach out to me if something is unclear or you want to talk about how I've applied this rubric to your work. So without any further ado, that is a preview of what you're doing for Unit 3. I look forward to seeing those letters. I feel like I get to go back in time and get an insight from you from that era, and also those writing assignments to take up critical questions of race and American government policy in the New Deal era. All right, thank you.